Hey everyone, thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and begin. Today, YCharts and 20 over 10 are teaming up to present to you 3 ways advisors are using social marketing to increase AUM. We're joined today by our hosts, Sean Brown, head coach and CEO of YCharts, and Samantha Russell, chief evangelist of 20 over 10, which has recently been acquired and is now an FMG Suite Company. Should you have any questions for our hosts during the webinar, feel free to submit them on the left-hand side of the screen. We'll also have a short Q&A session at the end of our presentation. Do note that the content of this webinar is meant for educational purposes only and is not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. Finally, we'll post a recording of this webinar to the support topics page of YCharts, and we'll send out a copy to all attendees. Now I'll hand it over to Sean to get us started.
Thank you, Allison. As Allison said, I'm Sean Brown. I am the head coach of YCharts, and YCharts is a pretty simple company. We do 2 things. We enable smarter investment decisions, and number 2 is we help advisors tell their story, and that's it. And that's what we focus on every day. And I am thrilled to be joined by Samantha Russell. And Samantha, why don't I let you introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, thanks so much for having me. And hello, everybody. I see some familiar names signing on. So I, as you've heard, am now the chief evangelist and really the chief evangelist for all FMG Suite. So those of you who may be familiar with either just 20 over 10 or just FMG Suite, back in November, we combined forces and we are now all under one umbrella, which is super exciting. And my role as chief evangelist is really to do a lot of what I'm doing today, which is to get out and meet with advisors, meet with people in the financial services community and talk about the power of digital marketing, but even more important than that, really give you tangible strategies that you can take and use to grow your business. Because we all know at the end of the day, I think that instinctively we can tell what good marketing is when we see it, but how to actually make it happen, what the formulas behind it is the hard part. So I really see myself as helping distill that down, and I'm thrilled to be here to do that with you today, Sean.
Yeah, and big congratulations to you and your team for your acquisition. That is a huge reflection on the great work you guys are doing. So kudos, and the cool new title and the extended signature line. Congrats.
Yes, thank you. And you know, one of the things I wanted to ask everybody before we get started, as you're going to be introducing the agenda, because I'm in the world of social media marketing every day, is tell us in the chat box or in the questions panel, wherever you want to put it in the GoToWebinar control panel. I'd love to hear from all of you to give me a benchmark. What is the best performing social media post that you've ever posted, maybe either for your business or yourself? So was it a picture of your family? Was it a question you asked? Was it an article you wrote about taxes? Tell us. We'd love to see as we're getting started here today. So I'll hand it back over to you, Sean.
Yeah, that's great. And I hate to say, one of my most largest impression social media post myself was taking a picture of a colleague who had a big T-bone steak in front of him. And it was a massive size steak. And I was astounded by the fact that that's what social media was really interested in that day, but that's my story. But look forward to seeing what people have to say on that. But as far as things we're going to talk about today, we're going to try to do 3 things. Number 1 is discuss 3 very specific themes that will help propel your growth. Sam and I are both very visual and very much of the mindset that a picture is worth 1,000 words, to use a real old analogy. So we have a lot of pictures to show you and a lot of great examples for you to reference, rather than words and talking about us, show you what other people are doing. And then, because we are both passionate about it, that's what our firms do for a living. We help advisors better communicate. We certainly want to talk about some tools that could help you on that journey. Whether those tools are from either of our respective companies is incidental. There are some good tools in the market that can help you on your journey. I wanted to give some quick context, though, to the topic of advisor communication. And the thing I'd say, and Sam, you remember this, about 18 months ago, YCharts put out a survey to a little bit less than 1,000 advised individuals, the customers of advisors. And these individuals told us that they were really unsatisfied with the level of communication that they were receiving from their advisor. And they made it clear in the survey that there were 3 consequences of not having great communication. Number 1 was they weren't going to be satisfied with their financial plan. Number 2 is they had a propensity to churn and consider another advisor. And number 3 was they were highly unlikely to recommend their advisor to their friends and family. And we all know that recommendations are an enormous source of lead gen for advisors. So improving communication is vitally important. Sam and I both agree with that. Social marketing is such a great way to communicate. And so, let's dive in and tell you more about it. And Sam, anything before we dive in, any other preface you want to give?
No, just before we get started, I was looking through all of the answers that you all gave, and I think one of the ones that I think is so interesting, Kelly Mushman, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, shared that they posted a throwback photo to a newsletter that they had sent out 20 years ago. So it's very meta, taking a picture of a hard copy newsletter or email news. Well, I guess it wouldn't have even been maybe email, and sharing that. Those kinds of things people love to engage with. So that was a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Lots of good people saying the best engaging posts were pictures of dogs or people. So if all else fails, post a picture of your dog or maybe your kid and you can get some good engagement. But yeah, let's dive right in with theme number 1.
Yeah.
Responding to timely topics.
Yeah. Hey, the easiest thing you can do is to engage in timely topics. Sam, why don't you get us kicked off here?
Yeah, so actually, I think I'm just going to have us go right to the next slide. And when we're talking about timely topics, what does that look like? A lot of times, the first thing all of you are maybe thinking about right now is like GameStop. That's a timely topic related to investing and finances. But think beyond that. Timely topics are really going to be based upon who your audience is, right? So you work with a lot of business owners back in the spring when, the PPP loan everybody was scrambling to figure out what they needed to do as a business. How do I qualify for this? Who do I contact? Even if you yourself don't have all those answers and you're trying to navigate it just as well, you can do something like this, what Bobby Dean Bascombe did here. She found a resource from the Small Business Administration of the US government. It was a great infographic. She took some screenshots of it on her computer, uploaded it to her social media, and then linked to where people could go to find out the information, right? So she didn't have to create this content, but she's able to add to the conversation and be helpful. Now, juxtapose that with what we're talking about timely on the right here. Dave Zoller, he is a CPA that helps small businesses with tax strategy. And I love this. He's in the Chicagoland area, and he posted, this was actually from last spring. The temperatures was in the 40s and the 50s a few days this past week in the Chicago area. That means people are starting to hit the golf course, right? So can I detect golfing if I discuss business? So he's taking something happening locally with the weather and tying it to something that he knows his clients would be interested to hear about. And then he even created a quick little video. So what my point is here is what timely means is not just national news. It's things like, are you working with a lot of young families and they're talking about going back to school in August? That's timely for that group of people at that moment, right? If you work with a lot of businesses trying to help them do, working with HR departments and how they're working with their employees, then in November during open enrollment, that's going to be timely content for you. So you really want to think about who your audience is, your location, your physical location. If you are based in California and there's wildfires raging, taking an article you wrote a couple years ago about, having good insurance for natural disasters and reposting it saying, are wildfires ravaging, your particular area of California? We wrote this post that you could find helpful today, even though it was written 3 years ago. So what timely content means is tying whatever information you're sharing to the moment. So I have another couple examples on the next slide.
Hey, Sam, a quick question for you.
Yeah.
The example on the left, how long do you think it probably took from conception to actually posting of that idea? How much time did Bobby Dean Bascombe probably put into that?
I know that she's very savvy, so I'm sure maybe like, 3 minutes at most, finding the link, screenshotting it, uploading it. Screenshots are your friend, by the way. If you don't use screenshots in your digital marketing, you are missing out. It is such an easy way to get images uploaded. If you don't know how to take a screenshot on your computer, Google how to take a screenshot on. It's different for a Mac versus a PC. There's still some people who ask me, how do I do that? But no shame, Google it. Google won't tell anyone that you looked it up. But yeah, it didn't take long. Good question. Okay, so here's 2 more examples, right? So this one on the left, this is actually a piece of content that we have available in the library that we offer, and we'll talk more about that. But one of the things that we recognize is that it can be really hard to have a piece of content waiting in the wings when something happens. So we have a whole entire library of content that you can use at any point, customize it for your audience, and then share it when the moment strikes. And so that's an example here from Dave of what he did. So back in the spring, when a lot of employers were suspending their 401k matching programs, and it was a big topic of conversation, he posted this. Great example there. He went into the library, found something, wrote up this nice, little intro and posted it. On the right, Jeannie Fisher. She's great to follow on LinkedIn if you're looking for ways to do LinkedIn content that are specific to businesses, B2B. And she always says she knows when I'm talking about her on a webinar, she gets a bunch of invites of people wanting to connect with her. So go ahead and do it so she could message me. But she has this great example here, right? She's saying, have you thought about your retirees during this mess? This was talking again about the volatility in the markets. Make sure you're rethinking your target date fund strategy, and she's talking about it in a quick video. So these are all great examples of what timely content looks like. Now, on the next slide, you might wonder, okay, well, I'm at a loss for what I should be talking about. How do I even figure this out? Of course, your own clients' conversations, being able to go on Reddit or Facebook or Twitter and kind of peruse what other people are sharing is a great way to do it. But let me introduce you to something called Google Trends. It's a free tool you can go to right now, and it will tell you historically at any given moment in time how well a certain term is trending, how many people are searching for it at any given time. So this is just some examples of some trends some of you might have been looking at. So we can see, for instance, Bitcoin, pretty level off a year ago versus now, how many more people are searching for searches related to Bitcoin. And the nice thing is, if you search something like Bitcoin, it will also give you different variations of that query. So what is Bitcoin? Should I invest in Bitcoin? The most popular search variations of that term. So Google Trends is a great tool to use if you're wondering what is timely at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the tricky things, and if we could advance to the next slide, is how do you know what's relevant to your demographic? The thing with Google Analytics is sometimes it's world-based or regional-based. A couple tricks that I hear advisors using and I use is, if you want to know what advised individuals are looking at, or whatever your demographic is, ask them what they follow. Like, ask them that as you get to know them. What do they follow? Are they regulars on the Wall Street Journal, CNBC? What is their key source of information? Are they active on Twitter and they're following financial advisor forums on Twitter? A couple neat examples that I see out there, back to your example, that takes no more than a few minutes is, well, if something's going on with GameStop, I doubt there are too many advisors out there that are recommending that as a stable part of their client's portfolio. But that doesn't mean their clients aren't asking, what should I know about this? And at a minimum, in 2 minutes, Charlie Bilello, who leads an advisory firm called The Compound, Charlie puts out a few very thoughtful posts a day, very light on words, a quick picture in the form of a chart, and he's able to tell people he wants to talk to, people he wants to communicate with, a little bit about GameStop. He's able to chime in a little bit about Tesla. What do my clients want to know about Tesla? They may not be asking, is it time to buy? But they may be wondering, what kind of a rocket ship is this? How does this compare to other rocket ships that have been out there? When is the danger zone? What should I talk about at the at Easter dinner table to show that I'm savvy on Tesla? Charlie puts these things out there, and it's just great summary content that his audience loves to see, and it's lightweight analysis, not a lot of words, 3 to 5 minutes worth of work.
Love those examples.
And just a couple more quick examples. If you're not already following members of the Ritholtz team, KISS, for those of you who don't know, keep it simple, stupid. Michael Batnick, Josh Brown, others in the Ritholtz group, they are just wonderful at getting their perspectives out there in a lightweight manner, millions of followers. And I think the really important thing about the number of followers isn't that it's some badge of credibility. That's the number of people you are effectively communicating with on a regular basis, and the number of people that you have an opportunity to build a relationship with. So again, just a couple other quick examples where Michael Batnick's telling a few interesting examples. Another example right here, Beth Kindig, she decides to take a different approach. And she is not an advisor, but she does some really in-depth, thoughtful research. But she always pairs her in-depth, thoughtful research with some interesting visuals. And visuals get you interested. Visuals either tell you the story themselves, or the visual pulls you in and draws you to want to read the words. So whether you're going to do a lightweight perspective or a heavyweight perspective, social marketing is a great way to get your perspectives out there in a nearly costless manner. Maybe we'll move on to the next slide. So maybe we'll wrap up this section on timeliness. Sam and I both happen to work for firms that can help in these regards. I told you some sources. Check CNBC, check Twitter, Google Analytics. There are a lot of places you can go. What does YCharts do in this regard? Well, we have some neat tools that allow you to have a dashboard, set up some alerts and monitoring on things that are important to you, which sets off triggers. And if the trigger hits and it says, hey, the ARC Innovation ETF has moved into this realm, and that signals some messaging I want to do my customer, quickly go create a visual, blast your visual out, broadcast it, or to a specific family that's interested. And it's a quick way to go from alert to communication, all within 2 to 5 minutes.
I love that so much. I love too that the charts, I don't know if you guys were all paying attention, guys and gals, but all those examples from YCharts, right? They're not just saying powered by YCharts, but they can be branded with your logo and your Twitter handle or whatever it is. So when people are sharing it, it's reinforcing you as the person generating this great data, which I love so much as a marketer. And just a little bit about how we can help with timely content. FMG 20/10, even before we came together, both of our companies since March have prioritized every single week releasing timely content that our audiences can use on their social media feeds and email, lots of places, specific to whatever's happening. So we have content team at the ready that, like the second legislation is introduced about a wealth tax, or the second the new stimulus bill is being introduced or passing, we are paying attention to all of that, and we are writing things and then rewriting them as new legislation gets updated, so that you don't have to worry about it, and the second you need it, it's already there in the library for you. So that in itself is a tremendous value add. And if that is something you struggle to do, is have that thought leadership quickly and be responsive, certainly check out our offering for that. But I'm not here just to sell you on our service. I'm here to tell you, be timely however you can be. So if it means you're sharing an article from the Wall Street Journal, great, that's fine. Put your own spin on it, say why you're sharing it. You can still be really helpful, even if it's not being attributed to you as the author. So I think next we're going to move on.
One of the things I think I've learned from you is, and be careful not to be that person who puts hashtags all over the place on everything you do, 15 hashtags below things, you can draw an audience, but don't.
Yes, in fact, there's a lot of research that shows the most reshared social posts have no hashtags on them at all. In financial Twitter universe, it's a little different because people use the hashtags of the stock symbols, so that doesn't necessarily qualify. But if you're doing like hashtag retirement planning, those don't get as many shares. However, it does allow more people to see your content. So you want to use them, but use them strategically. On LinkedIn and Facebook, no more than 3 hashtags. And on Twitter, I would say probably either use none or just use the stock symbol hashtags. And then with Instagram, you can kind of use them to your heart's content. That's a whole different strategy. I know not as many people are using that, but yeah, good point. You don't want to just go crazy with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's move on to our next section.
Yeah.
So we talked about being timely, right? There's stuff going on. There's stuff going on your prospects, your friends, your customers are interested in. So we're now attuned to being timely. Tell us a little bit about cadence. What's that all about?
So you really can't just show up on social media once a month and post something and expect it to be a revenue generator, a business growth strategy. And I know a lot of you don't want to hear this, but in the world of social media, you really need to be posting daily. I say that I don't post every single day. It feels like I do, but I don't. But at least 5 times a week, personally, I'm posting. And the same thing with our business pages. So there are some best practices in terms of like you can post more than once a day, and you should on places like Twitter, somewhere like LinkedIn. Really, once a day is great. But aim for 5 times a week. And I'm going to share a little bit more about how to develop this cadence. But before I do that, I want to share just some stats quickly, because I know there's some of you sitting there thinking, are any financial advisors actually getting clients from social media? And the answer is yes, they are. So this research was done by Putnam Investments last year. So they were doing the research actually right before the pandemic started. So I think that these numbers, when they update their survey, will be drastically increased actually. But they found even at the end of 2019 and early 2020 that 89% of advisors they surveyed, and they surveyed about 2,000 people, had gained new clients that they could attribute somewhat of that journey to social media activity. And then those that they deemed, there was all different kind of classes in the survey, but those that were deemed high achieving advisors were able to increase their AUM by 10% or more. If we go to the next slide, I think one of the really interesting things was they did the same survey multiple years. In 2018, the median age of a new client someone got from social media was 35. In 2019, just 1 year later, that median age went up to 40 years old. That is a huge difference, right? So imagine if every year we do this survey, that age keeps going up by 5 years. We're talking about significant difference in wealth accumulation, because we all know as you age, the chances for wealth accumulation go up. The people that are on social media, especially after this pandemic, are no longer just young people using it for fun. So keep that in mind when you are getting started with your strategy, but be prepared. If you come and call me and say, Sam, I started posting to LinkedIn and Facebook and nothing's happening, and I go and I look and you're only posting links to your website, you're not doing any of the other things we talk about, you're doing it posting once a week, and you have 5 followers, I'm not going to be surprised that you haven't gotten any new clients from it. So let's talk a little bit about what does a effective social media plan look like. And here are some great tips that I shouldn't even say tips. These are things that you need to do. So pick 1 to 2 platforms to prioritize. You don't need to be everywhere. If you don't want to connect with journalists and the media and have chances to, maybe be interviewed, don't worry about Twitter. Most people are not getting clients from Twitter, but they're using Twitter to connect with the media, their peers, to maybe speak at an event. But most people aren't getting clients from Twitter. Honestly, most people are not. But they are getting clients from LinkedIn, Facebook, some of the other platforms. So pick 1 to 2 platforms. Post daily. Now, this third point is one that most of you do not do. Don't just post links and content that you have written out somewhere else, right? So don't just post links to your website or your blog or an article to the New York Times. You should have a mix of things that post with links out and standalone posts. So some of the ones that Sean showed us earlier, right, where it just said from Michael bubble and it was a chart. you know, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. This is a great example here from Morgan Housel. If you're not following him, he's awesome. The Psychology of Money. He wrote that book. He's great, super talented, works with the Collaborative Fund. I just did a snapshot of like his Twitter feed to give you a great cross section, right? So you can see up here at the top, he's got When Everyone's a Genius. That's an article he wrote, so it's linking out to his blog. Then right below it, he just has a quote, a statement that he's making. Then below that, he's resharing something someone in his network did. Below that, another standalone, we call them native. They're keeping you on the platform post. Then up at the top, I have no self-control with Girl Scout cookies, you know, something to make you laugh. Then below it, some charts. So you see here, it is such a mix of content types. It's not all just posts that link back to somewhere else. And the reason this is important, think about the business that these social networks are in, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. The more they can keep you on their platform, the better, right? They don't want you clicking off and going somewhere else and getting distracted and not coming back. So the more you can intersperse links out to your own content with things that just people can read and digest in the feed, like a great chart from YCharts, and get some context around it, the better. So this is what you want to follow, you know, when you're thinking about cadence. Now, one more tip, and then I'll be quiet for a second and let you dive in, Sean. If we go to the next slide, we talked a lot about, like, if you don't have a big audience, what does that look like? And I know a lot of you sitting here don't have tons of followers, and that's okay. The number one tip I can give you for building your follower base is this: follow the 80-20 rule. And so what that looks like is, for every one thing you post to your feed, go and find 5 other people's posts to leave comments on. So again, every time you post, so if you're posting once a day, that means you need every day to leave 5 comments on other people's posts, and not just like great post or congratulations or that looks interesting. Nobody cares. That's fluff. It needs to be something that's adding to the conversation, right? So if somebody posts something, you might say, I disagree, and here's why, or our company actually does it this way, or, you know, 10 years ago, this story happened to me that was similar. But you want to add to the conversation and drive it. And don't just post on what we call first degree connections. So on LinkedIn, you know, there's people that you're connected to, or Facebook, and then you can see, you know, Joe Smith commented on this person's post that you're not connected to. If you've never left a comment on a stranger's post on social media, then you are not going to ever grow your social media presence for your business. You need adding your voice to the conversation, even with people that you don't yet know. And that is how you will grow a follower base, because people will see that comment and they'll think, oh, who's Samantha? I'm going to go and click on her profile. And then if they see all this great stuff you're sharing, they're going to want to follow you.
Yep. And it's no different than in the real world. When you help others, nice things tend to come back your way. Sam, I love the fact that you're putting in an easy way to understand the 80-20. 5-to-1 is absolutely right. If you're going to be out there and you're just blasting stuff yourself, you're like that person at the dinner table a dinner party who just talks, and nobody likes that person. People like the person who engages, who reinforces, who builds off of somebody else's message, and they intersperse that with their own unique topics. So bring what you know from dinner parties into the social media world.
And we're getting a couple comments here that I think would be good to just answer. Some people talked about compliance with leaving comments. That is something I cannot answer for you. Unfortunately, you need to ask your compliance team what their rules are about commenting. I found that most of the firms we work with now have allowed for you to leave comments on other people's posts. And I think this new SEC ad ruling update is going to help that even more. Another question that came in was, can you post the same things on all of the platforms, right? Again, pick 2 platforms, and yes, you can repurpose. So, you know, but what I wouldn't do, what a lot of people do, the mistake they make is in their social media scheduling tool, they might choose their blog post and then have it set to go out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere, you know, Monday morning at 9 a.m. And it says the same thing, it's the same picture. Think about your own social media behavior. How many of you set time aside in between like meetings and you check Facebook, then you check LinkedIn, then you check Twitter, you go to all 3 platforms. You don't want people seeing the same thing. It looks very unoriginal and not creative. So it's fine to share the same thing, but maybe share it Monday on LinkedIn and then time it up so 4 days later they see it on Facebook.
It's a really, really, really good point. And also avoid when if you're gonna put on multiple platforms, what you mentioned, the linked out. You're not helping yourself if you're doing that. So, well, let's move forward a little bit. I just point out a couple examples to you. Sam gave you some comments on, pick a couple platforms and get it going. Commit to a cadence, and don't expect social marketing to be like if you were playing baseball and every swing you're swinging for a home run. Commit to being in the game. Commit to participating on a regular basis, and good things will happen. So anybody who enters the realm of marketing themselves through social marketing and says, well, I'm going to take a checkpoint after 2 weeks, and if I see some great signs, I'm going to keep with it. Otherwise, I'm going to drop it. Don't do that. Commit for 6 months. Commit for 6 months for a cadence, whether that cadence is you're going to post a short video once a week. Some examples here from the Ritholtz group, an enormous number of social media followers, 10K, if you look at in red, 10K, 32,000 impressions. That didn't happen overnight. In the old Rome wasn't built in a day thing. That happened by getting your first 1,000 subscribers and followers, which built into more. And there are some real innovators in the space. The thing I really love about this space is there's not necessarily a need to reinvent the wheel. There are some people, some real leaders in this space, and advising is not a zero-sum game. There's all kinds of unadvised clients out there. Get your voice out there and look at what a couple leaders do. Ben Carlson and Josh Brown, and again, Michael Batnick and Barry Ritholtz and Charlie Bilello and some people I've mentioned. They're doing some stuff. They're exploring YouTube. They're exploring even, and you'll have to help me here, Sam. I don't really understand Clubhouse yet, but there's a lot of people that are innovating, paving the ground into Clubhouse. So people like me who may come a little bit slower are going to see, is that a good investment of my time? Do you have any perspectives on Clubhouse specifically, Sam? That's a new one.
Yeah, it's really, they're capitalizing on the exclusivity. Remember when, you go to New York City and there's a club and there's a line out the door and you have to have like a special invite to make the list. That is how they pitched it, and it was genius because they kind of did a who's who from the Silicon Valley crowd, and then from there, only certain people could get invites. If any of you want an invite to Clubhouse, connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will send you one. It's Samantha C. Russell, and I'd be happy to send you one. Once you're on Clubhouse, you can invite other people. So it's really easy to do that. And we just wrote an entire blog post, my team did. Amanda Larson, who's in the background, just put it in the chat. She and our team are awesome at staying on top of all the trends. And we have an entire blog post we did about what the heck is Clubhouse and should I use it? So you can read that. And it's really going to, again, like anything else, depend on your audience, but it could be a really great way to connect with certain groups of people. Yeah.
You just brought up some painful memories for me, though, of standing outside of that place I wanted to get into and not having a pass and having to stop at a 7-Eleven and go grab a soda and go back home. So painful memory, but let's proceed forward here. So I'll give you a zip through a couple quick slides of some research. Hey, you don't always have to be talking when you're talking in a professional manner. You don't always have to be talking in a subtle brag way about the great successes you have or your deep insights on the positive things that have happened. It's so endearing when people post about their shortcomings, their failures, their learnings from errors. In a post on the left from Nick Maggiulli, he talks about why he rethought his opinion on Bitcoin. Now, I'm not in any way espousing or making any assessment of Bitcoin myself, but what Nick, who's an advisor, did is he said, you know what, I was wrong. I was wrong in my prior opinion. He got that out there. And like with anything in life, when you're vulnerable, when you're the real you, and when people see that sometimes you win and sometimes you lose and you're willing to share your losses, that builds a lot of credibility. And Nick put his 10 great investing lessons from 2020. If you read that post, a lot of it is lessons he learned through pain and not lessons he learned through success.
We remember the lessons we learned through pain more astutely.
Yeah, but somewhere along the way, we learned to keep that quiet. And you know, like the people I love most in my life are the people who are flawed and said, wow, I really made a bad move on this level or that level. Well, those are the people that I say, wow, that's a real human. And that works really, really well in social.
That's great, because one of the questions that came in the chat was how to show your humanity on social media. I think what you post is important, but going back to that other thing, what you comment on other people's posts is just as important. So, you know, if you saw this post in your feed, being able to comment and say, Nick, thank you so much for admitting a mistake. It empowers everybody to, you know, share mistakes. And here's the top mistake I made while I've been growing my business. That's a great way to build a connection and add to the conversation, but also show your humanity. So that's a great example for that question that someone had.
Yeah, let's move on to the next example. So, you know, back to how can we help? Again, Sam and I are passionate about this topic, so it's inevitable that we're going to mention we're out there to help. You know, in a soft way, I'd let you know what does YCharts do about having a cadence. Well, first of all, we provide a framework. I showed the 2x2 in the bottom left of this slide, which basically says be self-introspective and think about a couple different dimensions. Who's the audience you're trying to reach? And that's two choices. I'm trying to blast it to a lot of people, or it's very much a narrow cast to one or a few people. And then what's the cadence that I'm going to use? Is it scheduled? Something I do every week, every month, every quarter, twice a year? Or is it ad hoc? I have a client meeting tomorrow. One of the things we provide is templates for advisors to use to be introspective and figure out how are they doing. Number two is we provide templates, tools, and frameworks to help you then improve in whichever one of these quadrants or whichever couple of these quadrants you want to focus on. So we have a whole set of tools that help you evaluate yourself and then help you get better and get out there in whatever quadrant you're eager to grow in.
Yeah, and just quickly, because we'll stay on at the end and show you the actual tools in practice quickly, but one thing I will say is if you are going to make a commitment to posting daily, like you should, having a social media scheduler is really key to do this. So you can outsource some of this to someone on your team, or you can set yourself up for success. So at the beginning of every month, look and see, what am I going to be posting this week? People ask me all the time, how do you post so much on social media? I plan it out. I have, you know, a list of everything that's coming up, and I know when it's going out, where it's going out, and we have tools at 20/10 FMG Suite that you can schedule these out in advance. Whether it's just, hey, I know on Thanksgiving I want to post a picture of my team and say Happy Thanksgiving from our team to yours. Schedule that out. It's one less thing you got to do that day, right? So using a social media scheduler tool is so crucial to save yourself time and make sure you stay on target. All right, so we did have a lot of questions about how do you show authenticity, or how much of, one of the questions that came in from Michael Antonelli, I love it. He said, what are the rules for how much personality should be in your content? You know, how many Samantha likes pizza versus the market is doing X, Y, or Z? What's that ratio? So let's talk in our next topic about how to showcase your original self, your personality in your social media posts, because I think this is very pertinent to that question. So first and foremost, there is no hard and fast rule, which I know everybody wants a rule. They want that 80-20 rule for this. But what I will say is the more you can inject personality into everything that you post, the more successful you'll be. So stop. One of the things I try to tell people all the time is stop trying to be professional, which equates to be bland, boring, nobody pays attention to it, and start trying to be a pro. There's a big difference, right? A professional, when we think of it as somebody who's always buttoned up and, you know, super formal, you never really get to know them completely. Someone who's a pro at something, you think of them as it comes easy and naturally to them. And so you want to be that pro on social media. And so you have an opinion, you want to back it up with thoughtful information, just like that other example we saw. You can change your mind easily. But so what does it look like? Number one, people connect with people over brands. We all know that. I love this example here on the left, Truman Wealth Advisors. there, if you look at the little icon for their Facebook page, it's a picture of the advisor herself. So she's a solo practice. Rather than showing her company logo, she just has her face. When you see her posts on social media, you're going to pay a lot more attention to them and thinking they're not a brand, but it's a person. So if you are a solo firm, that is one strategy that you can try and use, is use your face as your profile image on social media. Now, if you're a larger firm, obviously you can't do that. So what can you do there? Let's give this example here on the right of the company Fast. They offer one-click checkout and payments, trying to kind of compete with the Amazons helping small businesses. And if you follow them on social media, what you'll find is they're always showing the face behind the company. So here, meet Matthew Kovich, our director of content, and the person tweeting this tweet, right? So they're letting you know there's a group of people behind this brand. We're not just a faceless company. Doing things like meet the team posts where you profile different people from your team, or choosing somebody from your team to be the face of the company, sort of like I've become the chief evangelist, the face that you see all the time in your feeds. That is a really great strategy because people are going to build more of a connection. They feel like they can reach out to me and ask me a question much easier than they can reach out to somebody just at FMG Suite. Even though we know that you can do either, we're more likely to reach out to a person. We just are. So how can you humanize the brand? Choosing somebody to be the face of the company. If you're a solo practice, consider using just your profile picture as your picture as the profile image, and then also highlighting people that work for you as much as you can. All right, on the next slide, this also leads me to the point that the more you can actually, what we call keep it real, stop trying to act like everything's perfect and wonderful all the time, the better. This might look like sharing a picture of what work from home looked like for you during the pandemic, and showing a picture of your working space, which is your laptop piled up on a stack of books in a messy room. Or it can be, a picture of something that you're working on that you're struggling with. We talked about, authenticity that way. These two examples here, the one on the right was something I posted on LinkedIn that wasn't related to what I do as a marketer, right? So I was getting ready to go on vacation, and I said, when I go on vacation, my out of office message will never say I'm going on vacation, so I will have limited access to email, because that's just false and it's not true. We all have access to email all the time now. But instead I wrote, I'm choosing to look at my babies playing in the sand and stare at the palm trees rather than my phone. So I'm not going to be available. And people loved it. It was my most viral post, I think, to date. And some of you might be thinking, well, how does that help your business, right? The fact of the matter is, it doesn't make me a better marketer in other people's eyes, but it keeps my brand and my awareness out there in front of people. So that's what you want to do, is be creating conversations as much as possible. And that leads me to the next slide, which just is two more examples of this. Sometimes you're asking questions, you want to get people to engage. So the best social media posts start conversations. So if you could buy a stock in someone, who would it be? Or these are the best movies about short sellers. What did I miss? If I say something like, I'm thinking of taking my kids on vacation this summer, we really want to go somewhere family friendly, but outdoorsy, what are your best places that you recommend? And I post that to Facebook, and all these people start commenting. That's maybe 100 people who now are being exposed to me in my business that were not exposed to me before. So it doesn't always have to be about what you do. It's about starting conversations and being social.
Yeah, and so for those that didn't notice, Sam, that post that you had with your family, that was 93,000 impressions. 93,000 people got a small snippet of you and were able to form an impression and to say, that might be somebody I'd like to stay in touch with, because that person too struggles or has mastered how to handle out of office when they're with their kids. So you're building relationships bit by bit through time. Let's go on to the next slide. So listen, in the theme of be yourself, if you're analytical and a little dry, be that person. If you're artistic and creative, be that person. People are gonna like you for who you are. this is an example. This is a hedge fund manager. This is not an advisor, but this is a guy named Jeff Mackey who happens to be particularly artistic himself. And he has said, hey, my way of fulfilling my creative needs and also discussing and being out there and expressing my viewpoints is I blend them together. And while I'm looking at a chart or while I'm looking at something else, thoughts go through my head, and I've always been a doodler. Hey, why don't I mix these worlds together? So he's constantly drawing pictures, and people love him for it. And he's got an enormous amount of followers. You know, I'll whip through a few more examples on the next couple slides. You know, there are channels that are out there now that are tried and true. And again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel if it's Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. There are also new channels out there. Facebook Live, Twitter Live. We just talked about Clubhouse. You know, if you're an innovator and you're a fidgeter and you're a gadget person and you like to be on the bleeding edge of technology, there's all kinds of opportunities for you to do that. But if you just kind of want to stick with the tried and true things others are doing, go that way. These are just a few more examples. And I think one of the things I hope you're picking up on these slides, and we'll make these slides available to you, is notice the names. These are all reference points that I'd encourage you guys to follow. None of them work for Sam's firm or my firm. They're just people that we admire out there. So, you know, show you another couple examples on the next slide. Doug Boneparth. Oh my, if there's one person I want to be in social media that's not named Sam Russell, it's Doug Boneparth. He is so witty, and he makes me. I had a colleague who was very much into art, and that colleague, I said, "What's the definition of art?" And he said, "Art is something that makes you think, or it makes you feel." And Doug is an artist on social media. Every single one of his posts either makes me think, or it makes me feel in the form of laughter or thought-provoking, or both. And guess what? He has a huge audience because he is his authentic self, which is talks about family issues, talks about issues raising, talks about coffee and what's going on with coffee and his cup of coffee that day. And people who follow him love him, and they've built a wonderful relationship that could turn into a conversation about managing their nest egg.
Such great examples. I took a picture of that, so when I tweet it later, I can tag Doug, and he'll love it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let me give you a couple other quick examples. And Sam, these are people you and I are both close to. So Jess Boss, she is very much into powerlifting. She hates cardio. She posts, she's an advisor. She posts, you know, a clean and jerk, which, you know, I don't even know what that is, but she posts it, and she is an authentic human being who's trying to stay fit while also having an outside life. Desarte Yarnway, he was a college running back at Cal, and he posts, and he didn't get where he wanted to due to some injuries and things. Well, guess what? He writes what are his life lessons from that. And Justin Castelli, he's just one of us. He's trying to raise a few beautiful kids, and he posts some interesting things every day about, you know, I asked one of my sons to keep an eye on the other one, and this is what I came while I was working out, and this is what I came back to, and it's a complete mess of a house. Well, guess what? Over the course of a week, month, year, or couple years, there's some people building really positive impressions of each of these human beings that could turn into a commercial relationship.
The best thing I think we can sum it up to say is a lot of you've nailed the media part of social media. You post links to your website, to articles you've read, but the social part of social media is what a lot of people struggle with. Sharing things that are a little bit vulnerable, that are about your own personal. You wouldn't feel weird if a client came into your office and said, so what'd you do this weekend? And you told them. Don't feel weird about posting that, what you did this weekend, on social media, because we don't have the opportunity to talk to people in person the way we used to. So that's the takeaway here.
Fully agree. A quick one for, you know, every day, it satisfies my creative juices and helps me build relationships with others. I'm posting. I posted just yesterday about GameStop in the chart on the left. And, you know, just a quick snippet, a couple hours in, I had 32,000 people who saw it. and might have said, oh, that made me think, or that was ironic, or that was interesting. You know, I posted last week saying all these hot, you know, tech stocks, the FANGs, or what I like to call the phantoms, those didn't outperform Chipotle or Crocs. So, you know, hey, while we all get all this tech focus, let's remember that there are some companies out there, these guys, or Domino's, that are doing just fine too. And hey, listen, if you ever want to get a perspective out there on a company, Tesla, you know, a quick little picture that just shows that Tesla's market cap is way, way, way higher than every other automaker combined on much lower fundamental data. Each of these things took me about 4 minutes to do. So this is the kind of stuff I do, and this is the kind of stuff YCharts helps people do to get their story out there.
These are such great examples, and I'm hearing in the chat a lot of people saying these are such great examples. A couple people asking about how impressions work, so that's a great question. Every platform has their own way of monitoring it, but typically, if you're scrolling past something in your feed and you physically have to see it to scroll by it, that's an impression. It doesn't mean you click on it. So if you go into Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, you can actually look at more nuanced analytics. So you can see things like how many people, like if you click on any of your Twitter posts, you can actually go into the analytics and it'll tell you how many people saw it. So that's an impression. How many people clicked on the media in some place, and then how many people clicked over to your profile based upon that post, which I love that. LinkedIn will give you things like how many people have viewed your profile in the last 90 days. So you can tie, you know, an activity period of 90 days to how many people have viewed you. It'll tell you how many people saw something. But for instance, if you share a video on one of these platforms, an impression just means somebody saw your video in the feed. It doesn't mean they have to play it. On YouTube, though, if somebody sees your video on YouTube, they have to actually watch it for 30 seconds to be counted as a view. So impressions are much more just, it's in your feed, is the best way to think of it. All right, so I think what we want to do for all of you that are still on, keep the questions coming and we'll answer them, but we just wanted to show you briefly, you know, how we can take the data from YCharts and make it so that you can use it on your social feeds, because we've shown so many great examples. Some of you want to know how to do that. So I think, Sean, you're first going to open up your app and show us how to pull the data out, and then I'm going to show how to plug it in.
Yeah, we'll open up YCharts, and one of the things that's very newsworthy stuff is vaccination statistics. So it happens to be a data element that we've got in YCharts. How about if we create a quick chart in YCharts on vaccination statistics that may be relevant to looking how that affects financial markets. We'll pull up one from a template that we've got. And here's a chart. It shows vaccination rates. It shows average doses. It shows consumer sentiment, 10-2-year yield. This meets our needs for whatever reason. Okay, why don't we take this and pass that over to you, Sam? We're going to export it, pass that over to you, and what would you guys do with it?
Yeah, so I think I just need to take the controls to share my screen. And you should all be able to see this. So we have two options because, as I mentioned, 20/10 and FMG are now under one roof. So I'm going to show you both. I'm going to start with FMG just because it might be the one that maybe more of you are using, because the Lead Pilot's a newer tool. So if you're in the FMG platform and you come over here to social, you're going to click post on social media. You're going to click this upload a image, and you can either drag it if you have it on your desktop or select your image. It's going to populate in here. You can crop it if you need to, and then you're going to save it. And now it's previewing for me here on the right. This is a demo account, but pretend that says Samantha Russell. I just typed up what's the correlation between vaccine rates and the economy, and I can go ahead and either post it as is or schedule it for later. So you can see I've already done that down here. We've got it scheduled, and this is exactly what it's going to look like in the feed. So I could say more about it. I could say less. I could add a hyperlink. Super easy. If you're using 20/10's Lead Pilot tool, you can either compose one out like on its own, or I just wanted to show you this because some of you were asking about, you know, getting more timely content. You might search, see, oh, there's already a whole piece in here about, you know, the vaccine and what it might mean for the economy. So we'll take the image that we had uploaded and we'll add it as our featured image here. And now we can also maybe go in and add it in the body if we want. So again, just to reinforce what it is we're talking about, you can see how easy this is to do. And then I'm going to save it. And then I have the ability, same kind of idea. I can either schedule it for later, post it now. No, I don't want it to go to Facebook. Yes, I want it to go to Twitter and LinkedIn. No, I don't want it to go to email, and schedule it to go out, and you'll see exactly what it looks like. So your tool and our tools combined make it so incredibly easy to just nail social media. And I hope more of you will check them out if you haven't already.
So quick wrap up, social marketing is really powerful. Be timely, commit to a cadence, and be you. And good things happen. You're building relationships bit by bit. I love the analogy of the pro versus professional, Sam. I love some of the rules of thumb you put in there, the 80-20 rule. Give back, give if you want to receive. Wonderful, wonderful lessons for all of us. And are there any questions we should
yeah, I'm just looking through some right now. Somebody was asking about compliance. I'll speak to our side if you want to talk to yours. So both FMG's platform and 20/10's website platform have built-in compliance tools that will ship off your social media posts, or I'm sorry, FMG's will ship off all your social media posts to compliance. Lead Pilot does not have a one-click compliance approval process the same way FMG does. So if a broker dealer has already approved you to use FMG for your website and social media, it is quicker that way because it's baked in. With Lead Pilot, it's more of a little bit of a manual process to get the approvals as of today. Hopefully that will be changing in the future. Do you want to talk about the compliance part with YCharts, if at all?
Yeah, very quickly, we encourage people to stay in close touch with their compliance departments or their legal advisors to make sure they're doing the right things. We don't have specific tools to govern that.
Okay. Another question somebody asked for you specifically, Sean, is, how do you embed your company's logo into a YChart post? I don't know if that's like you upload it once and then on all the charts.
Yeah, well listen, we will first of all make the charts in your custom colors. So if your colors are red, green, and purple, those are going to be the colors on your charts. Your logo is uploaded once and it's on your chart, your custom colors, and you're off and running. That's part of the onboarding process. It's a 5-minute exercise. Tell us your RGB codes or pass us your logo. We'll take it from there.
I love that. That's great that you help them do that right up front. Somebody asked about how much time we recommend engaging with conversations with people comment on your post. So I can take a stab at this if you want to add anything. The minute that you see a comment come through, the faster you can respond to it, the better, because think of social media like a snowball going down a hill. It builds up momentum and the algorithm is like, oh, hey, that's a post that a lot of people are commenting on. We're going to show it to more people. And so it just builds momentum. So if someone leaves a comment, the faster you can respond to that comment, the better. I know it's not always perfect to do it right away, but the faster, the better. And try as best you can to, when somebody leaves a comment, ask a follow-up question. So if somebody says something like, hey, that's a great strategy, I never thought of that, you could respond and say something like, oh, glad to hear this, you find this valuable. What would it look like for you to be able to implement this strategy this year? Or what's your top question about implementing it? So you ask a follow-up question to encourage them to leave another comment, which tells the algorithm, this is a really engaging post. People are having conversations on it. So that's how you manage that.
Yeah, and I would just say that the guidance you're giving is important for when you do your posts. Like if you do your posts and then you go into a bunch of meetings, it's very hard to be responsive. So you might want to consider your calendar, which will dictate how responsive you can be to the posts relevant to you.
Yeah, or having somebody maybe on your team that can help. Somebody's asked about how to deal with negative comments. There's a lot of trolls on the internet. I get negative comments. You wouldn't believe the things people have said to me, both privately and in public, about my teeth, my hair, my background, what I said. If you're going to go online and share things, you're prepared to have people be negative, and it's high school stuff, right? Just ignore it. That's the best way to
ignore it. Ignore it. It goes away. Engage, and you got a problem. And so I couldn't agree more. Be prepared for it because it comes. You've got 1% of the people that have something that's bothering them about something. Ignore them. They won't come back.
So I know we are out of time. Where can people go to learn more about YCharts or working with you all?
Yeah, so if you come to YCharts.com, follow me on Twitter, follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever. We're there. Come look for us. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, of course, same thing. And again, if you want to connect with me specifically on LinkedIn or Twitter, I'd be happy to send you a Clubhouse invite if you're looking for one. It's Samantha20 on Twitter and Samantha C. Russell on LinkedIn. If you want to get a demo of, FMG's tools or learn more, you're already using them and you want to learn more about how to use these social tools, or you want to hear more about what we're doing with 20/10's lead pilot tool, certainly visit those websites and book a demo and we'll show you around.
Yeah. You know how to find us, guys. Go do great work out there. Social is worth your time. Hopefully these tips were helpful to you, and look forward to getting to know those of you who want to learn a little bit more.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Going to wrap things up here. Thanks again to our hosts, Sean and Samantha, and a big thanks to everyone who joined us today. We will send a copy of this webinar to all attendees in case you want to review anything we talked about today or to share it with your colleagues. We appreciate any feedback that you might have shared with us. If you submitted any questions that we weren't able to get to during today's webinar, we'll be sure to follow up with the information you're looking for. Thanks again, everyone.